Hi everyone. I'm going to be talking about understanding the CTIA requirements for short code text messaging campaigns. So first off, my name is Derek Johnson. I am the CEO and founder of Tatango.com. We are an SMS marketing provider. Been doing this for a little more than 7 years now, helping all kinds of businesses send out text messages to their customers. And one of the things that always comes up is how do I stay in compliance when I'm sending text messages to my customers? And today we'll be going through different things in regards to compliance, but mainly around CTIA compliance. But I'll tell you about how the FCC and the MMA impact those compliance laws and guidelines, recurring versus one-off programs, and then we'll dive into the actual CTIA requirements for recurring program requirements. So let's talk about the CTIA, FCC, and MMA. The CTIA is created by the wireless carriers. They're in charge of enforcing SMS marketing practices. Mobile Commerce Compliance Handbook is what they use to educate marketers, brands, and even SMS providers like Tatango on what they believe are the SMS marketing practices that they want people to be following. The CTIA then performs audits on SMS programs based on the things that are in the Mobile Compliance Handbook. So it's essential that you know what's in the Mobile Compliance Handbook and then you implement those things when you're advertising, promoting your campaign, and running your campaign. The CTIA is very specific in regards to text message marketing. They cover things like, you got to put message and data rates, and what happens if you apply help or stop, the message frequency, links to terms and conditions, privacy policy. It's very specific about text message marketing, where the FCC, as we'll explain next, is not very specific. It's more overarching for all kinds of ways that businesses can communicate to customers on their mobile phones. The CTIA guidelines aren't law. This is very confusing because people mix up best practices with law. The CTIA guidelines are not law. You can't be sued because it's not a law based on violating CTIA rules. Now, what can happen if you violate CTIA rules, which you will go through an audit, which is the CTIA performs audits on SMS programs. When an audit happens and you fail, if you do not remedy that situation, or if you don't remedy the audit, your short code or the campaign can be shut down by the wireless carriers. So you never want, number one, to be audited, and then number two, you don't want to not respond to an audit and fix the issue. What we like doing at Tatango is being super preventative, where if you follow all the rules, you'll never get an audit. You'll never even have the chance to be audited, and the chance, if you don't fix it, for your short code or your campaign to be shut off. So as mentioned in the slide before, another kind of regulatory body for text messaging is the FCC, which is the Federal Communications Commission. They have a thing called the TCPA, or the Telephone Consumer Protection Act. The Telephone Consumer Protection Act is actually law. It's actually federal law. The TCPA is all about businesses receiving permission from the consumer to text message them, and the specifics around how that permission can be gathered and what is allowed after the permission from the consumer is received. The TCPA doesn't go into, you got to put message and data rates here, or when you apply stop, you got to have these things disclosed in the message. It's a completely different beast. We have a bunch of guides and actually webinars about TCPA compliance. So if you're interested in TCPA compliance, definitely download those guides and watch those webinars. But today's webinar will be solely focused on CTIA best practices and guidelines. And the reason we're doing that is because if you violate CTIA guidelines and you get audited your campaign, you can be at risk for losing your short code or having the campaign turned off. Then there's this thing called the MMA, or the Mobile Marketing Association. It's another body, which again, as you're noticing, there's 3 different bodies. All of them kind of have their own rules and their own weird things going on. It gets pretty confusing from a marketer standpoint. Mobile Marketing Association, they release their own best practice document. The MMA is not law, just like the CTIA, their guidelines. Unlike the FCC under the TCPA, that is law. So the MMA puts out their own document. The MMA document is similar to the CTIA document, but it is different, which causes a lot of confusion, because if you're a marketer, which one do you follow? And if they say go left and the CTIA says go right for the same exact thing, which one do you follow? Well, it's very, very simple. The CTIA actually is monitored, enforced, regarding their guidelines. So if it says do something, you can get in trouble for not doing it. The MMA is just, best practices. So they're not enforced by anybody because they don't have a governing body that actually can go out and audit and enforce the rules that they're, not even rules, best practices that they're putting out. MMA is a great organization, but from a compliance standpoint, I wouldn't read the document. I think it just confuses people because we already have the CTIA, and since the MMA has no enforcement, there's really no reason for kind of what they're saying in the compliance for short code marketing. So now that we've established that we're focused this webinar on the CTIA guidelines, FCC is FCC is rules that are law. CTIA is rules that are best practices, but they're enforced. And then MMA is just best practices that aren't enforced. So again, I would disregard what the MMA says about things, focus on what the CTIA, FCC, and because this is a webinar on the CTIA, we're going to focus on the different kinds of campaigns that are mentioned in the CTIA Short Code Compliance Handbook. So there's 2 different kinds of campaigns. There's recurring and one-off programs. A recurring program is if you're sending more than one message to mobile subscribers, your program will be designated as a recurring program. An example of a recurring program is you opt in to receive Pizza Hut promotions every week. That's recurring. If you're a one-off program, that's if you're planning on sending one message to each subscriber, your program will be designated as one-off. This would be something like, text app to 12345 to download our app, and the app maker would send a text message with a link to download the app, and that would be the end of the conversation. What we're going to be touching on and focusing on in this webinar is recurring programs. So let's start off. In a recurring program, customers have to opt in. There's 2 different ways to opt in. One is mobile opt-in, one is a web opt-in. Mobile opt-in is where somebody takes out their phone, texts in to a short code, and opts in. Web opt-in is when someone goes to usually a browser, maybe even a point of sale, types in their phone number into the browser, point of sale, and then gets a text message confirmation back, and they have to respond to it. So let's talk about the mobile opt-in messaging requirements. So throughout this entire presentation, we're going to use the keyword Bob's for Bob's Burgers, just a fake made-up restaurant. So in this scenario, if you look on the right-hand side here, the customer has texted Bob's to the short code. Let's just say it's 12345, and they want to opt in. So to comply with CTIA guidelines, in the opt-in message for a mobile opt-in, you have to first have a recurring program description. That means something similar to you subscribe to receive recurring SMS offers. There's 2 different things here that I'll explain, and because of the fact that they continue in every other message, so we'll get it out of the way right up front. There's 2 things here. One is recurring. So back a year ago or so, before the CTIA revised their guidelines, it used to say you'd have to disclose how many messages exactly the customer would get. So, hey, you subscribe to receive SMS offers. 5 times a month. They've removed that since applied, or that has been applied on November 1st, 2014. That no longer you have to do that. You just have to come up with a way that the customer understands that the campaign is recurring. So what we've done here is you subscribe to receive recurring SMS offers. We've added the word recurring. It's a little overkill. We could have said you subscribe to receive SMS offers, and because offers is plural, that also means it's recurring. But we want to just 100% make it clear to the customer that this is a recurring campaign. And then second piece of this is the program description. This will be the SMS offers. You got to tell the customer what the heck they're opting into and what they're going to get from you. Weather alerts, SMS offers, SMS promotions, whatever it is, you got to tell the customer. So that's what a recurring program description means. And really, there's two pieces of that just in the same sentence. Let's see what else we got here. One thing actually we're missing here is the business name. Now that's not required in the mobile opt-in, but it's something that I highly recommend you put in there. It doesn't make sense that it's not required, so we put in Bob's Burgers. Second thing here is opt-out instructions, just something similar to text stop to cancel, which as you can see on the right-hand side there, text stop to cancel. Help instructions, text help for help. You can also put a toll-free phone number, it has to be toll-free, or an email address for help. Because an email address and a toll-free phone number are pretty long and you don't have very much space in a text message, especially in the opt-in text message with all this other stuff you have to put in, I like focusing on just text help for help. Then you also have to do a cost disclosure. This is the message and data rates may apply. This simply means that if you pay per text message, you're going to be charged per text message. That's it. So when you're doing a mobile opt-in message, when a customer opts in, those are the 4 things, in addition to the 5th thing, the Bob's Burgers, the business name, that you have to include in the message. Okay, now we're on to the second one. The web opt-in. This is when someone types in their phone number in a point-of-sale system or a website. And as you can see, the message flow is different. The reason being is because instead of someone taking out their phone and interacting, with your campaign, they're first interacting through a website or point of sale. So the customer first is going to get a text message from the business or the short code provider. This text message will include many of the things that we covered before. The business name, a response command, reply yes to receive recurring SMS offers. Again, the recurring part is one piece of it. The SMS offers, which is the description, is one piece of that. So reply yes to receive recurring SMS offers. It could be reply yes to receive recurring weather alerts, SMS promotions, things of that nature. The third thing is the help instruction. Reply help for help. And you can see on the bottom here, we say text help for help, reply help for help. It really doesn't matter as long as they know that if they reply help, they're going to get help. So that's the first piece. Then the customer will reply yes, hopefully. And then again, we can go back pretty much to the mobile opt-in message requirements. It's the exact same. You have to put the business name. You've subscribed to receive recurring SMS offers, which is the recurring program description, opt-out instructions, and the cost disclosure. In addition to the help, you got to put the help in both messages. Okay, let's look at messaging requirements. So this is when someone text messages a promotion out to their customers. There's not much you got to put in there. One is the business name, which identifies who is sending the message, which is not only a good requirement, but it's a good thing to do just so the customer knows who the heck the message is from. You have to put the stop instructions in. Now, in the CTIA document, it says a message once a month has to include the stop instructions. I don't think that's a good way to do it. I think, like email marketing, you should put the stop instructions in every single message at the bottom. So text stop to end. At the bottom of every single text message that your customer receives, in your campaign. Also, this is not a CTIA requirement, but I would recommend it. Don't forget the actual content in your message. So, you put the business name at the top, put all the content like, hey, here's your promotion, come in to, visit and 20% off. And then at the very bottom, text stop to end. So that's the messaging requirements. That's if you want to send a text message to your customer after they've opted in. Okay, now here are the help requirements. This is when a customer responds help to your shortcode. Number 1, business name, Bob's Burgers, as you can see on the right-hand side here. Recurring program description. So instead of saying you're going to join, we just changed it. You're subscribed to receive recurring, again, that's the recurring part, SMS offers. SMS offers is the program description part. Third thing here is support toll-free number or website. So it's interesting, you got to remember that they've already texted help to your shortcode. So unlike before where I said, oh, you could use help or a toll-free phone number or an email address, when someone texts help, text help to your shortcode, you can't say, well, for more help, text help, because then they would just be in a repetitive loop. So in the help message, you either need to have a support toll-free number or a website that the customer can visit for help. That's it for the help message. Pretty simple. Okay, now let's talk about the stop message. This is when a customer replies stop to your text message. So they can reply stop, end, cancel, quit, or unsubscribe. All those things have to work under CTIA guidelines. In the stop message, you have to put the business name. In this case, it's Bob's Burgers, and then a confirmation. There's no specifics about the confirmation. Just make sure that in the confirmation, you're telling the customer that they're not going to receive any more text messages. We like, you've opted out and will receive no further messages. Pretty simple. That's the stop message. That's when somebody replies stop to your shortcode or end, cancel, unsubscribe, or quit. It's a little more complicated now. Again, we've been talking about what is in the text message. Now we're going to start talking about what is in the advertisement when you're promoting your campaign to customers. This means when a customer sees a call to action, text pizza or Bob's to 33733 on a billboard or in store, in a magazine, on TV. This is what we're talking about now. The abbreviated terms and conditions. It sounds very, very complicated, especially abbreviated. Like what does all that mean? So there's abbreviated terms and conditions and the terms and conditions. The abbreviated terms and conditions lives in the call to action. So if you have a billboard, the abbreviated terms and conditions would live on that billboard. The terms and conditions, though, which is not the abbreviated part, would live on a website. So I'll go through this. We'll walk through both. What's required, an example, then we'll move on to the actual terms and conditions. So on that abbreviated terms and conditions, you have the call to action, which is not required by the CTIA, but why do it if you're not going to tell people how to join? So let's say it says text, Bob's to 33733. The recurring program description, which is required by the CTIA, would say, and subscribe to receive recurring SMS offers. Again, two pieces of this, recurring program description. To receive recurring, and then SMS offers is the program description. You also have to have the stop instructions. Again, it's not specific as to what the stop instructions need to say. It just needs to be very specific about, hey, if you're going to reply stop, that means you're going to opt out. We like text stop to opt out. This, as you can see on the screen, is bold. In your call to action on the billboard, on the television, wherever it is, it needs to be bold also. That is a CTIA requirement. You also have to have a cost disclosure. Message and data rates may apply, and we've already covered that in the past. Then you have to have a terms and conditions / privacy policy link. What this means, like I explained before, is this is the abbreviated terms and conditions. This is the billboard advertisement. This is what needs to be on the billboard. Now, you need to very clearly tell customers at pretty much the bottom of the billboard saying, for the terms and conditions of this SMS campaign and the privacy policy, link here, or click here, or go here, whatever it is. So As an example, we put TNC because we just don't have enough room on this page. TNC/privacy policy, www.bobsburgers.com. That's their website, /SMS terms. That means the customer, when they're looking at the billboard, they see recurring program descriptions, stop instructions, cost disclosure, and if they need more info in the terms and conditions and the privacy policy, they can go to this website. Pretty simple. That's all that needs to be on that billboard or television ad or in store, whatever it is, wherever you're advertising your campaign, this stuff needs to be there. This is what it looks like. It's pretty simple, actually. And again, we made everything look really big, but feel free to make the abbreviated terms and conditions much smaller if you need to put it on a billboard. So let's look at the top part. Top part is not required by the CTIA, but it's a good best practices because if you don't have the top part, they don't know how to opt in. So 20% off your next purchase, text Bob's to 12345. Again, not CTIA required. The first thing that is CTIA required is and subscribe to receive recurring SMS offers. You want to do this for two reasons. One, it's required by the CTA. Two is it's misleading if you're opting someone into recurring SMS offers without actually telling them, because up at the top, 20% off your next purchase, text Bob's to 12345. That's not telling them that they're opting in to receive recurring messages. You need to be very clear with your customer what they're doing when they're opting in. I like the 20% off your next purchase, text Bob's to 12345 and subscribe to receive SMS offers. I like those things being big, very clear. Now the stuff below is more kind of like abbreviated terms and conditions stuff. So that stuff, you can make much smaller on your call to action. Now, one thing on here that we haven't discussed, I just put it in here because it is worth noting, is the TCPA, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, which we discussed at the very, very start, which is, administered pretty much by the FCC. They, down here, want a certain thing just like the CTIA does. So they want you to say, by participating, you consent to receive text messages sent by an automatic telephone dialing system. It's a lot of words. Consent to these terms is not a condition of purchase. I'll quickly go through what this means, but we have a webinar and a guide exclusively about this. So definitely download and watch those things. So what it's saying is you're consenting to receive text messages sent by an automatic telephone dialing system. If you're using a short code, you're definitely using an automatic telephone dialing system. The second part of this, so that the consent is the first part. Then the second consent is consent to these terms, not a condition of purchase. That means you don't have to do this to purchase something. Pretty simple. So again, that's TCPA, different thing, but it all needs to be on the same page. Then let's go back to the CTIA requirements. Again, this is the abbreviated terms and conditions requirements. And abbreviated is just because it's not the full thing. We'll go through the full thing eventually, and that'll be on its own website. Message and data rates may apply. Text stop to opt out. Remember we talked about how it needs to be bold. In this advertisement, it is bold. And then the bottom down here, terms and conditions, /privacy policy, and we link to it. That's it. This is a TCPA and CTIA, approved advertisement or call to action. Now this can be on a billboard, this can be in store, on television, even on the radio. You'd have to speak this. So, it gives you a really, really good understanding of what is required in a call to action. Okay, now we're on the comprehensive terms and conditions. Some people just call it the terms and conditions. I call it the comprehensive terms because abbreviated, comprehensive, and it makes sense. So let's go through all the things that need to be in here. First, the business name. So Bob's Burgers. Recurring program description. Again, we've discussed this a few different times now. You're subscribed to receive recurring SMS offers. Recurring SMS offers, those are two different things. Cost disclosure. Message and data rates may apply. Pretty simple. Text stop to opt out. That's the stop instructions. Again, it needs to be bold. Just like it needs to be bold in the abbreviated version, it needs to be bold in the comprehensive terms and conditions. You can add in here the TCPA disclosure that we did in the abbreviated, but if it's in the abbreviated, you're covered because you're showing that to the customer. Doesn't hurt to put it in here if you want. Help instruction, text help for help. This is one of those times that because it's not on a mobile phone and they haven't texted help yet, you can replace text help for help with either a support phone number, it has to be toll free, or an email address. Okay, the next part is the privacy policy. There's two different ways you can do this here. One, you can link to a privacy policy, which works, because again, this is on its own website here. Or you can just put the actual content of your privacy policy into this document or this website. I like to do is just put, we take privacy very seriously and agree not to share any of your information with others. Just put that in the comprehensive terms and conditions and you're fully covered under the CTIA guidelines. What does this look like? Again, it's on its own website, bobsburgers.com/SMS terms. And here it is, Bob's Burgers, the name, your subscribers receive recurring SMS offers. That's a recurring program description. Message and data rates is the cost. Again, in this version, we put the TCPA stuff in there because you never can be too sure. By participating, you consent to receive text messages sent by an automatic telephone dialing system. That's the first part. Consent to these terms is not a condition of purchase, meaning you don't have to purchase. You don't have to opt in because you purchase something. Text stop to opt out. Remember we talked about being bold. Text help for help. Remember if you want to, you can put a toll-free phone number or an email address. And then the privacy policy. Now you can link to a privacy policy here, another website. I don't like a bunch of links going to a bunch of different places. I like it all one easy to read place. So I just put privacy policy. We take privacy very seriously and agree not to share any of your information with others. That's the comprehensive terms and conditions. And again, just to review, this website is linked to from the call to action, which is right here. So on your billboard, you say for terms and conditions privacy policy, go here, bobsburgers.com/SMS terms. And here it is on the website. It's not very hard once you kind of get the hang of it all and kind of have a great template. That's it. If you have any questions about CTIA compliance or even TCPA compliance or even MMA compliance, again, they're not going to audit you or shut down your campaign. So I'd focus on the TCPA and CTIA compliance. Email me. My email address is Derek, DEREK, @tatango.com. We have a bunch of resources too on the website under the resources tab. We have guides based on the CTIA, the TCPA. We have blueprints actually, which are templates that are provided by Tatango. So all these things that you've seen, kind of the images with the phones and the website, we provide those to you in PDF form and you can download them for free. So, you're always CTIA and TCPA compliant. I'm on Twitter. You can follow me at the Derek Johnson. You can tweet me if you have any questions. But again, if you have any questions about CTIA compliance, best practices, anything, feel free to shoot me an email or download any of the resources we have at tatango.com. Thank you for attending the webinar, and we hope to talk to you soon.